Hi everybody, I wanted to do a chapter review of Chapter 7, Designing Print and Online Documents. We're going to look at planning the design of print and online documents, understanding the design principles, designing print documents, analyzing several print document designs, designing online documents, and analyzing several online document designs. Goals for designing documents and websites. You want to make a good impression on your readers. You want your readers to be able to understand the structure and hierarchy of the information. You want your readers to find the information they need quickly and easily. You want them to be able to understand that information, and you want them to remember that information. To plan a design, you need to follow these two steps. The first step is, and this is what guides all of your technical communication, is to analyze audience and purpose. Before you begin your design, you need to know who's going to read it and how they're going to use it and why they're going to use it. So that's the first step. Then you need to determine what your resources are. Do you have some kind of budget that you can have things printed or create a website, hire a graphic designer? What kinds of elements what are your resources? Another just simple example from a student perspective is if I'm designing a pie chart and I have different kinds of colors and I don't have access to a color printer, then I'm going to need to be very careful in how I use color. So it's because everything is going to be a shade of gray, black, or white. So I can't use green, for example, or blue to identify a particular element. There are four main principles of design that you're going to use for all your documents and all of the websites that you design. So just basic design elements. And there's proximity, alignment, repetition, and contrast. And then I'm going to go over each of these. So proximity organizes this particular web page, and the way that you can see that is there are several elements that tell you there are lines under fun activities, and down the left side of the page there's a graphic, an image, and then next to that image is information. Are you in grades K through 6? If so, this is your area. And you can tell that the go directly below activities will take you to fun activities. Okay, if you click on that go, you're not going to go to parents and educators section, you're going to go to fun activities. And that's how proximity, it tells your reader what to do and where to go for the information. So you can see that things are connected simply by where they are on the page. Alignment, this is an example of a basic example that you've probably seen many times throughout your life, and that's of an outline. So you've got Roman numeral 5 completing the SF 424 R&R application, and underneath that you have Roman numeral A. It's just very slightly indented, and that's tells you the information that you will find in 1, 2, and 3. And 1, 2, and 3, because they are indented again slightly, you can tell that they're going to be about the SF 424. The A and the B are aligned on the page, so you can tell that those are subheadings. And then underneath the B, the number 1, again slightly indented, aligns with the number 1 under A, and that will provide the information about application instructions. So simply by the way that we align items gives our reader a roadmap basically for how to follow the document and the information in the document. When you're designing print documents, you can consider different accessing aids. And by accessing aids, what I mean is tools that the reader can use to find the information that he or she needs very quickly and easily. So you can use icons, you can use color, dividers and tabs, cross-reference tables, headers and footers, page numbering. So those are all elements of design that you can use that will help your reader quickly find information. Repetition organizes this particular page, and you can see that in the repetition of the use of color. You can see that in the repetition in the use of, for each element that identify key terms, we've got columns and page numbers to identify where you're going to find this information. In the second section, review the main ideas, you've got bullets that follow the same format. And then in the last one, make connections, you've got numbers. So all of these elements, columns, bullets, and numbers can help you organize a page by following that. Contrast is our next element that's really important. And with contrast, you can see the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, this website, you've got the gray heading with the bold black title, Bureau of Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, and then under that you have another headings that tell you there are different tabs basically, and the fact that impact is a different color indicates to the reader that that's where he or she is. That's the page that he or she is located at on this website. So if I were to click on Media Center, then the lighter blue would highlight the Media Center, and that's a way of allowing the reader to quickly see where he or she is on the website and to find the information more quickly and more easily that the reader needs. So learning theory is really what has been used to dictate page design, and the way that we learn helps us, or if we design for the way that we learn, it's a lot easier for people to understand information, particularly when it's something new or something that they're not familiar with. So one tool that you can use is chunking, and chunking is when you put like information together. So you emphasize that this information belongs here and then the next information belongs there, and you can see how you can use the design elements of proximity, repetition, any of those could be used to chunk information. Another way of thinking about chunking is paragraphing, that you're paragraphing. So you can actually use white space as a way to emphasize that information is in particular units. Another way that we use learning theory is cueing. You cue the reader by giving them visual distinctions to indicate levels of importance, and you can do that with numbers, you can do that with headers and subheadings, and so there's lots of different elements, design elements that you can use to let your reader know, okay, this is really important, this is a little less important, and this down here is not quite as important. Filtering is the use of visual patterns to distinguish types of information. So you might use color, you might use bold, and or a combination of bold and color. So different headings will be different size font, and they'll be all caps or all black or all blue, and all those different elements can help your reader know what types of information are to follow. Margins have four purposes. They reduce the amount of information on a page, making the document easier to read and use. And think about this for yourself. If you're looking at a page that is all text, no headers, no subheadings, no images, that's quite daunting. If you look at your textbook, your textbook is actually a really good example of following these design principles, because it chunks information, it cues information very nicely, and so it follows, and you'll see with your margins that you have information in the margins. There are pull-out boxes, there are information for links to other websites and so on. Another reason for margins is to provide space for binding and allow readers to hold the page without covering up the text. This connects to purpose. If you know that your reader is going to be flipping through a manual, then you need a certain amount of margin so that it can be bound together in some format. It also, margins also provide a neat frame around the type, and as I said just a minute ago, provide space for marginal glosses. That's the information that you get in the margin of your textbook. That's what a marginal gloss is. The multi-column design is also another way or another tool that you can use with designing. And it makes the text easier to read because the lines are shorter. The columns enable you to fit more information on the page, and the columns enable you to use the principle of repetition to create a visual pattern design. So columns are really useful for you when you're designing a paper document. I think that they're very helpful. They're also helpful in online documents as well. There are different types of typography, and these are some elements of typography. There's typefaces, type families, case, type size, line length, line spacing, and justification. And we're going to go into these a little bit in depth here. There are different types of typefaces, and they make different impressions. If you look at the text box here, you can see the first almost looks like it's cursive writing, and that's called French script. And that is not nearly as easy to read as the paragraph below it, which is Times Roman. And this is what you would typically think of a newspaper, the New York Times. It's where it gets its name. And then the bottom, the last line is universe, and that has more of a modern high-tech look, and it's better suited for titles and headings in technical documents. And we're going to talk about this on the next slide. What I want to talk about here is serifs and sans serifs, and that may seem silly and really not that important, but they really do play an important role. You can see from the image here that serifs are those little lines that are around the N. The one at the top, the one at the bottom, or there's two at the top and one at the bottom. So those are serifs. And what they do visually is they connect one letter to the next. Sans serif, the N with no little lines to the right of your screen, that's sans serif. Sans means without. So without serif, without the little lines. And without the lines, what that does is it allows you to just focus on the individual letters. So what you need to know about this is that serif fonts allow the readers to connect the words together. So if you're reading a paragraph of text, you want to use a serif font. And if you're using headings and subheadings, you want a sans serif font, because that forces the reader to focus on each of the individual letters independently. So typeface can have many variations. So if you look at this image, you can see that there's a big difference between the Helvetica Light and the Helvetica Regular Condensed Italic. So there are lots of different. There's Helvetica Regular, Helvetica Bold, Bold Heavy, Bold Italic. So there's all different kinds of ways that you can, variations of a particular font that you can explore, again, to give your readers those visual cues to help him or her know. If I were designing a document, I would use the Helvetica Heavy for my heading. And then I would probably use the Helvetica Regular for my subheading. I might even use the Helvetica Light. So you can see that just simply by picking a different variation, you can create an appropriate design. Case also affects readability, and I know for several of you, I have talked to you about following the rules of capitalization, okay? What case does, upper and lower case, it makes it easier to read, okay? So individual variations are greater in lowercase words than they are in uppercase words. You can see that than they are in uppercase words, I'm looking at each individual word, whereas with the individual variations are greater, it just flows. And that's really an aspect of design that's important. If you, again, using this with headings, titles, those kinds of things, if you want your reader to pay attention to each word, then you're going to use the uppercase. But if you want them to see that the words go together and you need to take all of them together to make sense of it, you want to do the variations of upper and lower case. And certainly you would never use all caps throughout an entire document. It would just be so difficult to read. So use them sparingly and use them for headings and for emphasis. There are also different size fonts that you use for different purposes. So if you're going to use footnotes, you would use an 8 or 9 point type, which is very small. Body text 10, 11, and 12. Generally 11 or 12 is what's more acceptable, but again, it depends on your document, the type of document, how much information you want to get out there. Headings 14 point. Indexes are 2 points smaller than the body text. So you'll notice that in the marginal glosses of your textbook that those are smaller. That's a smaller font. Titles 18 or 24, and slides 24 to 36. Most of the slides that I do for you are 36 point type. Sometimes I have to do it a little bit smaller when I have more information that's going to fit on one slide and I need it all to be on one slide. You also have different ways that you can use line spacing throughout a document. And the key here is being consistent, all right? And this is an element in your memo format that you need to follow. And there are different, where in your memo format where I have purpose, discussion, and recommendation or conclusion, you can just use any one of these three line spacing, but you want to use the same spacing throughout. So for example, if you have summary, a space, and then in this example the writer has skipped a line, that's fine. But then the next paragraph of under purpose, I have a space, and then I give the purpose of my memo, that's fine. But when I do my discussion, I can't skip to summary and no line. I have to be consistent. And the same thing, all three of these are fine as far as style goes. You just need to be consistent with whichever the design element you select. Other design features that can help make a document clear or provide emphasis: rules, which are another word for straight lines; boxes, which can emphasize information; screens, the background shading used behind the text and graphics. You can use different colors to help clarify, to make things clear and to emphasize information. The marginal glosses, again, are great to just give like a call-out box about something that you want the reader to highlight, or a definition of a term you want the reader to understand. And then pull quotes are similar to marginal glosses, only pull quotes are, think of like magazines. You see them in magazine articles. You see them in newspaper articles where there's a quote with a box around, or there's a big box and there's a quote in the middle of the box, which you will find later on in the document as you're reading through it. So all of those are ways that you can emphasize information. These 8 principles will help you design effective online documents. So now we're focusing just on online. Use design to emphasize the most important information. An online document can be quite complex and have a lot of information. That's both the curse and the beauty of online documents. And so you want to make sure that your reader can find what he or she needs to find quickly and easily. You do that by emphasizing important information, by creating informative headers and footers, by helping readers navigate throughout the document, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, and using extra features, including extra features that the reader might need, hyperlinks to particular more information. Good, effective online document designs help readers connect with others, is designed for readers with disabilities in mind, and designed for multicultural readers, and aims for simplicity. You always want it to be simple and clear. When designing for disabilities, consider vision impairment, hearing impairment, and mobility impairment. If you have noticed on the slides that I create for you, there's always a script that so that if you are hearing impaired, you can actually read what I have said to you and follow along that way. I haven't really gotten anything for vision impairment, and mobility impairment. Certainly on the slides that I have, you don't have to click through it, you can just listen to the lecture, so there's no clicking involved. Guidelines for designing simple, clear web pages. Use conservative color combinations to increase text legibility. Avoid decorative graphics. Use thumbnail graphics. Keep the text short and chunk information. So again, you don't want your page to be too busy. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you need to do it. When I designed my very first website, in the early 90s, I used all of the bells and whistles I could think of. They had this running text across the bottom. I had the typewriter text that would come up and give you information when you clicked on the website. I had flashing lights. I did everything, and it was absolutely horrific. So I learned the hard way. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. So make sure that you're not trying to make it pretty, but that you're really focusing on getting that information out there as clearly and directly and as concisely as you possibly can. Make the text as simple as possible. Structure your sentences as if there were no links in your text. So if, for example, links was, I wanted you to link somewhere, I would just have that underlined and make that a clickable document so that you could just link to it that way. Okay, indicate what information a linked page contains. So for information on how to follow the rules of capitalization, or this page explains how to follow the rules of capitalization, okay? And then this page would be the clickable link, or yeah, page. Either one of those would be my clickable link. That would be applying this. So this final example here has uses all of the elements that we've been talking about in this lecture. It's got its headers, it's got nice use of repetition, of color, proximity and alignment. You can see how we're using our fonts. That was one thing I didn't say, and you can see it here. When we are writing online, we do not use serif fonts as much. Because of visibility, it's much easier if you use sans serif fonts when you're writing online. So that's a key difference between writing online and writing a paper document. Paper documents, we use serif fonts. Online, we use non-serif fonts. Okay, and it's just a readability issue, but it's important to keep in mind. So you can see how to the left of the page here we have a list of all of the different places that you can go, and then there's subheadings at the top of the page of other sites that you can go to. So it really gives you a great deal of information. We've got proximity, alignment, again, the use of color, and this National Institutes of Health, this would be for someone, a general user, and it tells you all about the NIH and all about the information. So if I wanted to just learn about the NIH in general, it tells me visitor parking, where to go if I want to go visit. It gives me information about the organization, the budget, the history, I can even get a job at NIH if I want to. But that's just the general about NIH. And then the subheadings are if I'm looking for health information, grants and funding, news and events, research and training. So again, this page gives us tons of information, but it's a clean line. It's not overly designed. It doesn't have tons of color. It's got good contrast, and it uses contrast effectively. So that's what you're looking for when you're designing a page. If you have any questions about this lecture, post them in the I have a question forum or email me, and I'll talk to you again soon.